if we are to stretch beyond our limits, then we need to focus on the prize ahead of us. Many people in life focus on obstacles rather than the prize. And in 1 Samuel chapter 17, you realize that David focused on the prize rather than the obstacle. In verse 26 of 1 Samuel chapter 17, David asks, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? He is focusing on the prize. What will be done? And in verse 27, they repeated to him what had been stated earlier, that the man, who kills Goliath would be given great wealth. He would also be given the king's daughter in marriage, and his family would be exempted from paying taxes in the nation of Israel. David here is focusing on the reward, on the prize, rather than the risks, rather than the obstacles. Friends, remember this. The greater the obstacle, the greater the prize of overcoming it. If we are to reach beyond our limits, if we are to stretch beyond our reach, then we must focus on the prize and not the challenges. The second thing we need to focus on in order to go beyond our limits is past victories. David's confidence was based on God's faithfulness to him in the past. He had known the help of God in the past. David remembered the victory God had given him when he fought off the bears and the lions. And this motivated him. This is what we read in verse 34 to verse 37 of 1 Samuel chapter 17. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the jaw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will also deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Wow, words of confidence. So Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. God had protected David and granted him success in the past. So David reminded himself and those people around him of the fact that God had been faithful to him in the past. He is confident that God who had been with him in the past, God who had been with him before, will be with him even now as he faces this giant called Goliath. You know what, friend? I'm sure you can look back at your life and see how at one point or the other, God fought for you and granted you victory. I'm sure you can look back and you're like, yes, that situation was hard, but God helped me and I made it. I somehow came through. Yes, I'm here to remind you that the same God who fought for you in the past is well able to fight for you even now and into the future. As we seek to reach beyond our limits and break, into new frontiers, we need to remind ourselves of the past victories which God has wrought for us. The third aspect we need to focus on is the presence of God. Goliath was a valiant Philistine warrior, and he was the most fierce and powerful opponent the Israelites had ever seen. His size was prodigious. His armor was unmatched. His challenge was unchallenged. And for 40 days, he was able to bellow defiance at the Israelites, twice a day, without eliciting any response other than fear. It is important to note that as much as the words of Goliath aroused fear in many people, they stirred up faith in David. I like what he says in verse 45. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." What is it that gave David confidence? I put it to us that it was not the weaponry that David had, but the presence of God which he had. God's presence enabled David to be on the offensive rather than on the defensive. Friends, I put it to us that God's presence makes the whole difference in our lives. God's presence can turn your breakdowns into breakthroughs. God's presence can turn your setbacks into your setups. God's presence can turn your upside down situations to a right side up situation. The last thing I would like to mention is that to stretch beyond our limits, we need to focus on the praise of God. David's main goal in running to the battlefield was so that the world would know the true living God. And this is what we read in verse 46 and 47 of 1 Samuel chapter 17. "This day the Lord will hand you over to me. I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. Not this, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." All those gathered here will know that it is not by the sword or the spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, not mine. And he will give all of you into our hands. Friends, I just wonder, what is your goal as you try to reach beyond your limits? As you try to do great things for God? What is your goal? Whatever you are stretching out to do, do it to the glory and honor of the Lord, so that people may know there is a God you serve.